Welcome to this series of informative videos that will lead to more insight into boards of international schools so that you can be more effective and impactful in your role. Since international schools around the world may be structured differently and have different needs and terminology, these videos are intended to be somewhat generic, rather than focusing on trust schools or proprietary schools. But the fact remains that while schools are very different, the challenges faced by the board are often very similar. Whether the board is referred to as the Board of Governors, Board of Directors, or the Board of Trustees, the principles are the same. Since governors and directors have quite specific interpretations associated with those words, I'll use the term trustees throughout this series simply because it better alludes to the responsibilities placed on the individuals that make up the ultimate decision-making body in the school and the position of trust in which they operate. This series of videos attempts to provide insight into many of these commonalities, with a view to providing new trustees with the information they need to accelerate their effectiveness on the board, while allowing more experienced trustees to explore areas that they may not have had sufficient time to reflect on. The concepts provided in these videos are a blend of good practice that has been well documented through books such as those from the National Association of Independent Schools, and research and guides about generative governance and governance as leadership, such as those championed by Drs. Chaitan Ryan and Kathy Trower. Governance standards and expectations are also well documented in the more rigorous of accreditation protocols, such as those from the Council of International Schools and the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, as well as international school organizations such as ASA. These conceptual understandings have been blended with my own 30-year adventure of leading international schools in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, along with many years of organizational boards such as ASA, NEASC, Fabicia, and the IB Heads Council, which has led me to what I call the 5 C's of impactful boards. Each video is purposely kept short. Some are just a couple of minutes long, but others may be up to 15 minutes in length, that allow you to either work sequentially or to dip in and pick certain topics that are needed at that particular time. While they have been thoughtfully arranged, you don't have to watch them in any particular order, and you may need to focus on those more pressing issues first. That's up to you. What I ask is that you try to stay present when reviewing the videos. One of the challenges with traditional educational literature is that it takes significant effort to carve out the time to focus on reading. If you're a trustee or a school leader, you probably have lots of pressing issues to deal with, and by the end of the day, your time and energy is spent, which typically means that these books and resources don't get read, and so nothing changes. A trick that I find particularly useful sometimes is to click on the cog icon at the bottom of the screen and change the playback speed. I'll frequently play a video at 1.5 times the speed, for example, as the brain is usually very capable of skim listening, just as we can skim read. And of course, the video allows us to replay or change back to normal speed whenever we need to clarify what was said. These videos are designed to make it easier for you to consume the content through not having to focus on reading and decoding the written word, but at the same time, it's still easy to mentally drift off. As with any learning of value, it's important to pay attention to your mental state and to ensure that you're still engaged with the content. Listening in the background while you're driving or on a faster speed is fine, but if you recognize that you've actually stopped actively taking on board the content, then take a break and refocus. Having said that, one of the advantages of consuming video content is that you can drift off into a daydream state. If you're daydreaming about what to have for dinner or your next tropical island adventure, then that's not entirely productive. But if your daydreams take you to reflections of your last board meeting, or how you could tackle a problem differently, or a new way of looking at a board problem, then job done. You can always go back to the video content, but the main purpose of these videos is to get you thinking about your role on the board. I also ask that you suspend certainty for a while, and to be open to new ideas. There's a lot of educational research about a fixed mindset as compared to a growth mindset, and how it impacts learning. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. If you want something different, you have to do something different. Or, in the words of Albert Einstein, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. In other words, be open to the possible merits of doing things differently. And even if the case studies and examples are not exactly the same as your situation, maybe they bring some insights that you can apply to your own circumstances.